you guys comfortable. If you want to.
You're muted, Julie.
Every time I touch a button, I mute myself. I have no idea. Sorry. If you want to ask a question, you put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and ask a question. But I'll get started. And what I do is I ask a question, then I'll pick a few other people off the panel to answer it. Then we'll go to the next question. Okay. Everybody ready? So we have a lot of new upcoming trance mediums, and I would like our panel to explain the importance of blending. As I know that you've had to take notice that there are a lot of them that are not taking the time to blend, to clear the chatter out of their mind, to connect correctly with your guide. And I would like to start with you, Andrew, on the importance of blending.
Okay. Look, it's everything, I would say. Is the short answer. The reason that just in my experience, and I'm not an oracle, I'm only sharing my experience and my thoughts, but if you don't allow your mind to become receptive to the influence of your spirit friends, or to a loved one if you're working with regular mental mediumship, then there's going to be more of you involved in the process, in the trance, in the communication than there needs to be. And there can be a presumption that the quicker I blend, the better, more proficient I am, which is not correct, in my opinion. I think that part of the journey is understanding when you have achieved the connection, that means you have given the best of yourself to your spirit friends, and that you really feel that urge building within you. You really feel this sense that I need to speak, not I want to, I really need to speak, because that impression, that feeling is growing so strong that it's like the words are going to come from you, whether you want to or not. Now, obviously, it doesn't happen literally, but what I notice sometimes is the person closes their eyes and then 10 seconds later, there is, quote, trance. And at best, it's fanciful. And at worst, it's just making it up. So that time that you spend blended with your guides is critical. And the thing is, there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer. It isn't that you should take 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You should take however long it takes each time you work. And you should understand when that really is time to speak. And as you become more proficient, in my opinion, that time period may reduce, because the ability of your guides to blend with you and get you to that stage that you need to be at just becomes easier. It's quite simple in my mind. I don't know. Does that really answer the question? Maybe, hopefully.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Barbara. I called Sharon by her last name. I don't know why, so sorry.
You get used to that now. Well, it makes me laugh because, as I said earlier, my mother-in-law was Barbara Barber, so it's yeah. Well, yeah, it's Andrew, yeah, it's hard to follow that, but to me, perhaps I'll come in more from the aspect of the teaching point of view. Yes, I really the first thing I do is I say to my students, this is a dedicated journey trance, and the blending part of it's obviously how you build up your connection. I start off with the light trance connection though to start with for them. So it's I do word association, and then ask the guide to come through and bring their wisdom on that word. Some of them is trying to get them. Some of that will be quick though, because in the very light trance, you actually do want them to say. So one of the exercises I do, which might help people, is I give them a word like sunshine. I'll say, what does that word mean to you as a human? And they give me something in 30 seconds. And then I ask them to go down very lightly and ask their guide to come forward and inspire their mind. And it's a way for them to learn to stand aside. So as they get used to that, then we start with the deeper, we then layer it down into the deeper levels over time. So it's the only way I explain it to them. It's really important to not just somebody. I've actually got a new student, so she said to me the other day, "Why can't I do it like you?" And I said, "Well, it's 10 years plus down the line from what I'm teaching you at now." But then I've also had the experience of somebody coming quite new to trance and going deep and very quickly. So each student varies, if that makes sense, with the blending. Some are more natural trance communicators than others. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to come in from a bit different angle, that everybody's unique and different. And some will progress quicker than others. I had that my own experience over the years. I remember one over 3 years, I didn't seem to progress.
I
And
think
I realized that.
I think what we were speaking about was more of the blending process of going into trance with your guide. Yeah.
Yeah, so that to me is the early stages of what I've said, and then I build that up. One of the exercises I like to do myself is not actually to go into trance, but I sit in the energy and I invite my guides to be with me. And this can be spiritual development, and I ask them to enhance my energies and work with my energies and bring healing to my energies to enhance my trance connection.
And you have very beautiful energy.
That's another method I use self, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you. Joe?
Cool.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm muting myself there. Hi. So I think with the blending, we can only really go on our own experience, can't we, and how it unfolds for us. But, for me, how the blendings worked over the years for me is really understanding the power of our soul. And I think the more that we look in and explore the power of our soul, and the more that we find that discipline and that focus within the blending, the more we start to recognize, however that works for us, that blending stage. So, a lot of people will say, I've got to clear my mind completely, but actually it's a part of that process. I think it's about the more we can transform, that mind, that consciousness, and recognize that the altered states isn't something separate, that we're actually blending into things on a day-to-day basis, aren't we, really? So it's recognizing how it works for each of us. And so, blending into the soul, learning how we can quieten that mind. And slowly, the more that we start to quieten that mind and get to know us and get to know thyself and that great power, the more the enrichment comes within that blending of that soul to soul between you and your team. So, I would say that it takes time. I would say that it's experimenting. At times it's going to be a struggle, other times it works. But it's letting go, isn't it? It's the art of letting go and learning how that surrendering and how that blending process works for you. That's what I would say about that. I hope that helps.
Awesome. I have to ask Debbie this question because she's good on teaching the breath.
Thank you. Yeah, no, Joe's words really resonate with me. It's how I feel myself. See, the thing is, we can't get to know the spirit that we work with until we know the self, until we know ourselves. And it's that process of, as I say, as Julie says, I would be very much connecting through the breath, learning to know the rhythm of your own breath that takes you into that beautiful hold. And it's the experiences as you become adjusted to that, the energy. It's like, think about ourselves as being outside of the energy. So if you think of the terms of brainwaves, so the more active we are, we're outside of that. But then And when we start to come in, we come into the energy which is already there. Our awareness changes through that, and through that, that is brought in through the breath work of stilling the mind, subduing the mind. We can't stop the thoughts, but we can subdue them. And then what happens is you find the breath taking over, which takes you into that beautiful connection of your own spirit, getting to know your own spirit. What does your own energy feel like? And as that moves through you, then if you know what it feels like to sit within your own blend, think about it like that way, then when our beautiful friends join us, you know the difference, and we start to move through that and move forward with it. So to me, that is the basis. We will never understand it until we know ourselves, until we know our own connection, our own blend. That to me is the most important thing.
And that brings
Thank
to
you,
my
Jo.
next question. Thank you, Debbie. That brings me to my next question. Taking time to heal from trauma for your development. I'm going to take that first one to Malada.
Yeah, I actually feel that this is really important, that it does hinge with knowing yourself. But what can happen sometimes is if we aren't in tune with ourselves and working on our healing and growth process, that our own trauma or our own life experiences will start to come into our mediumship, whether it's evidential mediumship or it's trance mediumship. And I have experienced and witnessed that many times where very well-meaning mediums might have some bits of things come in from their own experience, and then we're not getting that pure resonance from spirit. So it's really important that we're continuing to develop with our own, like's been spoken to, with our own selves and with our own soul, our own spirit. And we forget too, I think sometimes with the blending process, not just blending when we're going into trance or allowing the trance aspect to start to come forward, but also blending on a daily basis. We sometimes forget that we are doing ourselves a huge favor by allowing spirit to be with us. They're always with us, but that awareness of their presence and the energy of their presence and the unconditional love of their presence, that within the healing process as well. So the two really go hand in hand, I think. And it's so important. It's our continued development as we develop with spirit. So
Thank you. Hitomi.
You know, I think the one thing that I keep noticing when I'm hosting circles is that trust and surrender, of course, is the main factor to see if you're going to get any kind of blend. And learning, I think learning about yourself, about if you actually do trust people in your current life and who you trust, and then starting to open that up and understand that your experience with all of this work has completely is a mirror to your life, as Malada was saying. And I think that the importance of healing, of looking to aspects of healing your trauma as you do this, is just going to bring your work to a better place. You can't have one or the other. It has to come together.
Judy. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I agree with what everybody's been saying, but on a personal basis, I just want to say that take your time to heal from whatever trauma it is. We all have our own personal traumas. There's no one that's trauma-free, and that don't rush your unfoldment, don't rush your development, and to really heal from it and to learn about who you are. And again, back to the blending, allow your guides to blend with you as often as you are available to do that. I do it every day because your guides are going to help you heal. They're going to give you what you need. And when you heal, then you're more available to blend with them in the trance way, in the evidential way. But when you go into it, when you're broken, you're not going to be able to experience the connection that you need. You're not going to be able to experience the love that you need because you're going to be hesitant, or you may be unavailable, you may be unable to surrender. But you have to fully surrender for the trance work. So take whatever time it is to heal, even if it's a long time, and be patient with yourself, because you may go forward and then go back, forward and back. And just, again, take however long it is. And my guides speak about this so much. I hope that helps.
Does anybody else on the panel want to answer that question? So now let's ask about surrendering. Surrendering. A lot of people ask, well, what is surrendering? Alyson?
Surrendering. Oh, it's probably one of the toughest things for me. When you go from the beginning to coming in, starting off and finding your connection, finding your blend, and then doing all the various bit, letting go. I would find that I think, well, I'll come in and I'll sit down and I'll blend, and then I'll let go, and I'll sit down, and then I've got everything still going on in my mind of what I've just been doing, of what's been happening, what's relevant, whether it's with family, whether I put the washing on, what am I going to have for dinner. All these things are going on, and they need to kind of like go through. And then I stop thinking about them, and I just start relaxing into myself. So from there, and then moving into recognizing my energy, not focusing on anything, and allowing the blending to come. Then the surrendering for me, I suppose, is the sudden sort of acceptance of the trust that I have with spirit around, or my guides around me. And then that is just allowing whatever is being impressed upon me, or what I feel I need to say, or whatever energy is influencing me around, just to be able to come out. And I think also is trying not to focus on anything in particular, because if I start focusing on something, which sort of takes me into the last question of healing from trauma and things like that. Sometimes I found that if I focused too much on something that was really causing me upset, I was blocking everything else around me. And so I wasn't letting go, and it was becoming bigger to me in a way. So the surrendering is also just like, oh, well, I just have to let go of that, forget about that, and allow something else to come in to almost distract me, which will make me relax, and then let go. And then I'm open. This is for me, I'm open to the impression of whatever is around me. So I don't know whether that helps anybody, but that's kind of like how I accept and let things happen.
Does anybody else on the panel want to answer that before I call on you? Or Sharon?
No, well, as you were talking, my guy just said to me, give them your little example, what you did, when I was sort of, so I had trouble a few years ago surrendering, and I sort of becoming a bit of a stalemate with it. And it was like, ooh. And then one day, my guide, John, who I now is one of my trance guides, who was working with me at the time, I had this thing to come into my head, and they said, we're going to give you an image to hold on to, so I don't think about what I'm thinking about my day. I'm not thinking about the person that upset me in the morning or my worries. And they gave me an image of an oak tree with a seat and then a view, and they said, we'll bring two guides, and they wrapped themselves around me, and that took me into that space of detachment, because I went to that oak tree, and I sat with that for a few years, that image, before as I went down. Haven't needed it for a while, but my new guide, Mary, interestingly enough, said to me, which I've just started working with, she said to me, I'm going to give you a golden triangle. So before I go into trance with her, I get a golden triangle, and it's almost like it goes back into my head, and then that's the connection, and then I'm sort of shifted. So I don't know, that's just different to me, you know. So I've gone from not needing anything, but she's bought me something to hold on to. And I felt like it was a mixture of comfort to know she was there, because I've worked with John for so long. So I'm now in a different energy with her. The blending energy is different. But it was also, I feel like it was some energy that she's bringing with her that's part of my subconscious, my conscious, with a telepathic connection. So two things with it.
It's actually beautiful. I think Debbie was going next.
Yeah, thank you. Isn't it such a beautiful word, surrender? But to actually really encompass what that means and the process that you go through to get to that stage. And I think that comes back to the blending with self, because if you know yourself, you know how far you're letting yourself go within the blend. So think about it that way, taking it a step at a time. And why is that important? Because you get to understand how your own intuitive side guides you, as well as we talk about our guides, but we need to understand the guidance within ourselves, which comes forward. So the more that we sit with the self, more we get to really understand. We know how the body's speaking to us. Okay, that comes through in messages, it comes through in so many different ways, but that to me it's ourself that teaches us about surrender. How far are we going to go this time? How far? And what does it come back to? Trust in the self. We need to trust ourselves first, because you're working between this human experience and spirit, you know, so it's the blend of our own self first that's so important. And that's how surrender comes through, really understanding you first and letting each step go. But what happens is there's this tiny voice that then comes through from yourself that helps you with that surrender. Go that wee bit further, and then you start to realize how the communication, how your own self communicates with you, how your own spirit. We forget about our own spirit. It's our own spirit that takes us on that journey, that helps us, that lets us understand this connection, that when we connect to the guides, it's all about the trust, but the beautiful essence of surrender. It's such a beautiful word because it means trust. But it's the trust. You have to trust yourself first. Trust where you are. Trust the experience you're in. We need to be aware of that first before we can actually take that next step forward and trust spirit, because it lets you know everything that's happening round about you without even having to know about it. That's what it is to me.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Judy?
And I just want to add to what Debbie was saying, because that was so beautiful. Thanks, Debbie. For me, when I was starting out, once I knew myself, I asked my guides to come really close and allow me to, it was very important for me to feel them. And when I would feel that love around me, because that was the complete trust, and I knew my guides were there and I could feel it. And you can ask your guides to touch you if that's what you need. And I needed that when I was starting out. I needed that union, and that's exactly what it was. And once I developed that relationship with them and I was able to have that physical touch, that helped me let go so much and surrender completely and have total trust. And then as I developed more and more, I of course I love to feel them, but then you don't need that as much. But in my early stages, I really needed that because of where I was. But you can ask them to come close to you.
Wouldn't you all agree that there's stages of surrendering? Because I can remember when I felt like I couldn't breathe. I mean, you go so far down and then it's like, and it gets you there. Joe, would you elaborate on that one?
Hello. Yes, I think, like you said, there's various different degrees, isn't there, of the surrendering where, we can be in that state and then we're aware of something. We're thinking, why am I aware of that? And that's usually something that, a lot of us struggle with. We often say, well, I shouldn't be aware. It's like, we're expecting to be in the trance like the old pioneers in the days of completely unconscious. But to get to that stage takes many years to develop. So, we have these various different aspects of the altered states and the blending and going down, and saying about the surrendering, as Debbie said, the soul and the power of the soul. I think if you look at the wonderful Gordon Higginson, he spoke so much about the power of our own spirit and getting to know the self before you get to know those that work with you. And within the soul, there's various different degrees, I feel, before we even get to those that connect with us. So there's variations, but I think when it comes to surrendering, we often try too much. And so there's a difference between trying and then there's allowing. And I think if we can just shift the energy to allowing, there's an energy within that itself. And so just allowing yourself allows for this openness to come within yourself. And so with surrendering, it's recognizing that freedom and that expression to allow yourself to slowly move very gracefully through those various different levels. That's what I would say about it at this time.
Very wonderful. Hitomi, have you gone through the breath where you felt like you couldn't breathe because you were?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like, I think that I think with this work, there's every time you get to one point where you're like, yes, I got this and it's working, you're like, no, now I'm back to the beginning of a new thing I have to learn to surrender. So I think that there's so many levels to surrendering, and I think there's so many levels of getting to know yourself, because I think in the beginning your guides kind of help you get to know yourself, and then you switch a little bit. Your guides are a little less and you're getting to know your higher consciousness, and then it goes like, this constant, balance of up and down of work, as you get deeper and deeper into it, and then, I think one thing to keep in mind, just I wanted to say, if there are people here who are wondering about it and it's new to them, that for me at least, I realized that it's hard to trust yourself, and it's hard to trust the higher, whatever you want to call it, God or whatever is above, whatever spirit or whatever you want to call it. It's sometimes hard to trust that if you've had a lot of stuff in your life that made you not trust, and that's the beginning, I think, for trance, is understanding that part of life, that you have a chance to learn to trust, even if that hasn't been available to you in your life, and that trance can help you heal in learning that you can trust something, and one of the things that helped me in the beginning was to surrender, was that my guides would always give me a yellow rubber ducky as a sign of like, okay, it's okay now, even if you can't breathe. And I had asthma as a kid, so not being able to breathe was really scary. But then when I would get to that place, it was just so beautiful that I wanted to just go more and more and more and more,
Yeah, I have respiratory issues too, so it was like I had to go through it a few times. Andy?
Yeah, no, I think it's just really interesting to listen to the perspectives. There's lots of, it's kind of like all roads lead to Rome, and it's kind of about which way you take it, and understanding that for me, trance isn't a destination, it's a state of being. And it's just about allowing myself to be wherever I'm at on each day that I work with them, and feeling and appreciating and responding to their influence, and going into it without expectation, for me, is important. So you go into this session, and in the early days, I would often I kind of want to know, well, what are you going to say? What are you going to talk about? And I'd need to know, because the fear of failure, the fear of judgment was weighing heavy. But then after a while, you have to almost shrug your shoulders and say, like, to hell with it. I don't care what you think. I don't care what anyone thinks. I just care that when that time comes, when they need to speak, whatever needs to be said will be said. And to not go into it with this sense that I need to be in control. You've almost got to roll over like a tortoise and just allow your spirit guides to rub your belly and say, look, Andy, it'll be fine. Let's just do it. And I know it's a silly analogy, but you have to have that mindset and not worry about the fear of failure, because you will change as every day is different to the preceding one. And you're different, you'll grow, you'll fail sometimes. And other days you will just fly. And it's about not worrying. And the less you worry, the easier, in my opinion, it is to surrender. Because surrendering is held back by the fear of something. What does Julie think? What does Judy think? What does Joe think? If I allow that to worry me, that is going to mean that I can't surrender as much as I would have, because there is something holding me back. There's an obstacle. So you have to be quite pig-headed in a way and say, I don't care. I value your opinion, but it's not going to stop me. And you have to have that mindset and just think to yourself, I'm as unique as the next person. So embrace your weirdness.
It's so true. That's really
It
true.
is.
And when you're in circles, we really need to, that's why I like to create my circles, is no judgment. If you go down, blah, 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 babble, because you're trying to get it out, and then that's okay. But getting people to get to that state, they're too much in their head.
Yeah.
But there, some people start out with Melada.
Yeah,
Sorry.
with regards to surrendering, I just wanted to mention too, did I interrupt somebody? I feel like I interrupted. Heard
No, I was
something.
saying it's okay.
Okay. With regard to surrendering, I wanted to mention that, this practice can start, and really all of these practices can be even more beautiful when we practice them in our daily lives, when we're quote unquote not blended with spirit, even though we are spirit and we're always with spirit. So the practice of letting go of control throughout our day. So we're brought the wrong food when we go somewhere. We're stuck in traffic, whatever those things are, that we're just okay with not being okay. We're okay with that, what acceptance in the moment and acceptance of things as they just pass through us like a channel. And that practice helps us with surrendering. And it's something that at least personally has helped me with the surrender with spirit, and asking spirit to be with you in those moments, because you start to become this oneness, so that there isn't the blending process is just a deepening of what you have an awareness of all day long that way. So that's just something works for me. So
That's true. Does anybody else want to elaborate on that? I'm Sharon. I'm going to start calling you Barbara once a day.
I don't know if it's elaborating, but as I've been sitting here, I'll have my guides chipping in a little bit on the conversation. And sometimes I've surrendered obviously deeper or more other times. But there's been times when I felt I've touched that pure energy of unconditional love. And it's been those moments, and then I've had tears coming down my face. I've been in trance, I didn't know that's happening. Then I come back out and I feel like I've had this wrench from my heart. So it's those moments of surrendering that sometimes you touch that divine energy. And then a lot of other times I don't. But I don't let that bother me, because it's there. It's like, I don't know if that makes sense to people, but I just wanted to say that.
It makes sense. Thank you. What about, okay, I'm going to come to this one, and I'm going to go to what I consider an expert. The quality of the breath, the importance of the breath, Debbie. I hear so many good feedbacks about her.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah, we are nothing if we don't understand the breath, you know, because the breath will take us into an experience and it'll take us out of an experience. And I want to come first of all to, is it Hitomi? Sorry, is that what how you say your name?
Hitomi.
Hitomi. Yeah, thank you. My daughter also suffers from asthma, so the importance of the breath was instilled in me from a long time ago because of that. But it's also when we talk about, you know, think about if you're panicking, what that does to the body. It tenses the body up, okay? So from, you know, for you look at it from that point of view, not even if we think about trance state, but how you can bring yourself to a place of calm just through being aware of the breath. So when I teach this, the first thing I teach within the trance state is the importance of feeling the flow of your breath. So if we actually are aware of just the flow of the breath in, the breath out, not taking in 8 breaths in and 8 breaths out, but really feeling the flow of your breath, you can start to feel the control. So what actually happens with me within the trance state, and I'm sure many of you may have experienced this, but how the breath can take over, how the breath deepens. But if you're aware of the flow of your breath, you're flowing with it rather than fighting against it. So if you think about a panic attack, okay, you lose control, okay, and then it starts to, start to feel the effect of that on your body. Physically, we're feeling that. So if you think about that in the trance state, when you're already aware of the flow of the breath, it actually takes you into a beautiful grounding. What happens when you're grounded? You feel held. What happens when you feel held? You let go, you surrender. So that to me is the most important thing, is the awareness of the breath and how we don't have to control it. All we do is have to move with it. And it will take you into the different states of awareness. You start to become aware, I'm going to be a bit deeper here. Oh, there's changes in my breathing here. I'm moving with it. To me, that's the most important thing that you can do, is just understand your breath. And it helps you both, as I say, in your day-to-day life. I had an example just recently. I was on holiday and I'd be very connected with energy, and as I came up the stairs, there was a football crowds coming towards me, and I actually went into a panic mode. But through the awareness of being in trance, I was able to go straight into the breath, connect, ground myself, and then get back up and walk forward. So not only does it help you in the trance, but it helps you in your day-to-day. You think about if you receive news, what happens to you when you receive news that's unexpected? You ever realise what happens with your breathing? If you sit and think, how does the breathing, am I feeling constricted? Or am I feeling relaxed? But when you become conscious and aware of the breath and sit with the breath and just breathe in the natural breath, you actually take yourself into such a beautiful place of calm. And that also helps you then understand what the awareness of the trance states are. That's what it is to me. Thank you, Jelly.
Thank you. Okay, so I would like to ask about, I'm going to ask everybody this question: how long would you think development takes? And the reason why I'm asking this question is because so many people I've been seeing are developing for 6 months and think that they're a teacher, or developing for a year and think that they're a teacher. I'm going to start off with okay, Sharon.
I didn't catch it all. Sorry, could you say development?
There's a lot of, I'm starting to see a lot more teachers going out there who've been developing for less than a year or a year.
Well, I'll run this scenario by you, and then I'll let everybody else talk. My first teacher never sat in trance. I sat with her for 5 years. I know. And then my other mentor, also, I'd never seen her in trance. So I just find that
you were self-taught.
no, they
you.
were in a circle, guiding us, but they weren't trance sitters. And the first one didn't really start doing trance herself until about 4 or 5 years into the circle. But we all developed. So it's almost like the guides inspired her through her to teach us the methods to do it. So that's just, but I found it, when I look back on it now, I'm a great believer that you have to experience it to teach it. Yeah, I've sat in the other side of it.
Yeah, I kind of put it to trying to teach somebody to ride a horse if you can't ride.
Yeah, I just wanted to
Judging right now, but it's just my observation. Of,
I really say to my students or people that come to me is that it's a long journey, and I suppose I can't remember when I started, probably about 10 years ago, but it's only really been in the last 3 years I've started teaching, I guess.
well, you write wonderful books.
But my experience is two teachers that didn't sit in trance, and yet they were fascinated by the subject, and they'd go to physical trance medium circles, events. So it's old, isn't it? I just wanted to
Yeah.
say it's a
That's the
complete
first time I've heard that, so I was kind of,
answer you wouldn't expect.
Andy, thank you.
Okay, so are we talking about how long until you can kind of say you're a trance medium? How long until you
Wait,
should
if
teach?
you've noticed, a lot of times people, it's coming out there that people are going to classes for 6 months, claiming to be a trance medium, and they're starting to teach now, or a year, when they haven't
Well-
even experienced it themselves.
I suppose that we could say that yes, they are a trance medium, but there's degrees of proficiency. So technically, yes, I suppose they are telling the truth. They are a trance medium. But it's like saying that if I go to a football match as a supporter, does that make me a footballer? And if I go to lots of matches, does it make me a better footballer? It doesn't, does it? You're experiencing it kind of vicariously through watching people. You will learn something about it. You will learn the rules and maybe the gist of it, but you don't really know what it is to be the footballer unless you're on the pitch. And to be honest, I think any insight that I ever give people is usually through discussing my failure. Some of it is stuff that I've learned that I know works, and some of it is saying, look, in my experience, don't do this because the result will be this. I learned because I did stuff wrong. So I've had to try it, make a mistake, come to a conclusion, do it differently next time. So that trial and error is a constant part, I think, of the learning experience. And if someone says to you, Andy, I don't understand why this happens, the chances are that it's already happened to you. So you then say, look, this is why it's happened. This is what I would do to remedy the situation. How about we try this instead? And so that you learn as you're going along. And the trial and error aspect is, I just think it's inevitable. I really don't think that we can just say, I've read many books, therefore I know many things. Because reading about being an astronaut doesn't make you an astronaut, does it? All right. It means you might know a lot about it, but you don't know what it is to really experience it. So I really think you have to educate yourself. Of course you do, but you have to experience it yourself. And your own understanding, if you're working from like an altruistic point of view, and it really is about what is best for the people you're working with, then you will understand when you know what you need to know. You'll understand when you have the answers to the questions that someone is asking you. And if you haven't, then maybe it's time to reflect upon what you're offering or not offering, and maybe educate yourself a little more, maybe give yourself more time to develop. But it doesn't take away from the fact that in the majority of cases, the people that are trying to help people are doing it well-intentioned. But there's obviously a limit to how much good intentions can help someone compared to understanding through experience. And I think the experience of doing it is vital. And You know, that's my experience. So yeah, I don't know whether that answers it clearly or raises more questions.
I agree with it. Alyson? I think it's great. Not that I'm an expert, but I think it was a great answer.
Well, I suppose, you know, I'm 61 and I would figure that it's taken me 61 years to get to where I am now in understanding and realizing so much that goes into all of this from, you know, day dot. Doesn't matter whether, you know, you're running around in the playground at school with an imaginary friend or you weren't, you know, whether you had relatives who were of a spiritual nature or you didn't, you're constantly evolving. And you're going through the experiences of life where spirit is touching you in all sorts of ways, whether you're recognizing it or you're not. So for me to get to where I am now, I have had the privilege of coming across some wonderful people who have inspired me or have spoken to me and just broadened my horizon. And obviously I feel have been sent indirectly or directly by spirit to put me in position to respond, to open myself up, to be willing, to question, to doubt, to think I'm completely crazy, to wonder why the hell me, you know, and to try and work out exactly what has gone on with my life. Getting to know me, there are times when I think, do I really know who I am? Where do I want to go? What do I want to do? But I think, I suppose, I never thought I would be a trance medium at all, in any form. I never even thought I'd be a medium, you know, but the learning that I got through various people, discussions, philosophy, all sorts of things, and the privilege I had with these people all got soaked into me. And I'm sitting there like an eager little beaver on the edge saying, "Ooh, feed me all this information," but never thinking that I would actually do anything with it. Until one day, boom, I'm overtaken by spirit, think I've been hit by a brick, and whoa, what's this? I have no idea what's going on. But then it was through, you know, mentors who've been able to support me in understanding the new aspects of what's been going on in my life and how I can open myself up and trusting. So I'm still like the little baby pea in the pod, and I know I've got a long way to go, but for whatever this journey is taking me on, maybe my next visit, I'll be amazing. Who knows? I'll take it all with me, and it's all consolidating. So when you're ready, spirit will impress upon you something more. The door will open for something more, and it will feel right for you to go through it. And if you feel at times, oh, I don't know whether I'm really ready for this, take a step, take a chance and try it. If you're not ready, spirit won't push you in a direction that you're not ready. But the biggest thing is you've got to be honest with yourself and know that, am I confident in me knowing what I am offering, sharing with people? Am I confident that it is not me, but it is spirit who is impressing upon me the words that come forward in trance and things like that? It's all just it's a crazy ride, really, when you think about it sometimes. But so for me, cutting a very long story short, 61 years.
That's awesome. Joe?
Yes, I think, you know, development, to me, it takes a whole lifetime. And even once we transition, we're still developing. I feel it's ever continuous. You know, it's not a case of, okay, I'm going to train for this amount of years and then that's it. And then I've reached that end destination. You know, I think we all are learning. We're all soul beings that are on this journey to discover. And soon as we think that we know something with our development, then it changes. You know, for me in the early days, I mean, you know, I came to this when I was about 12. And I first went into trance when I was 16, where they just took me into it and wondered what that was all about. And again, I was quite reluctant to develop it. I didn't want to. It was more the evidential side that I wanted to go down, but the spirit world had other plans for me. Did I listen to them? I didn't in the beginning. So there's my lesson. And I think how much of us listen? I don't think we listen enough. And, you know, I think in the old days, they very much, you know, when you go into the spiritualist churches, you know, you'd go into the awareness circle, then you would have the closed circle, then the advanced circle. So there's all these various different stages of development. But I remember when I was doing platform for a little bit, and my tutor at that time, and she's been going for about 30 odd years, bless her heart, she's in her 80s now, and the things she's seen and witnessed is just wonderful. And she said to me, I thought, I'm not ready. I'm definitely not ready for this. I just, you know, I don't feel I am. And you get nervous like you do. And she'd say to me, if spirit didn't think you was ready for this, they wouldn't give you the opportunity. So trust in spirit and get you out of it. And then I just was quiet, you know, had that discipline from her, and it was fine. And I think it's all about experiencing. You know, we can sit and we can sit and we can sit and we can blend and we can understand, and you know, we can understand that journey. But I think sometimes we need to come out of our comfort zone to develop that trust with spirit. And I think we have to recognize when our team want us doing things, and the opportunities will come, you know, things will start to flow. I feel if it's not flowing, then, you know, we need to sort of take a step back perhaps. So I think it's, like I said, it's ever progressing, and we can learn so much. And as I said, as we start to think we know something, then something else comes in, knocks us off and think, okay, I don't know anything, you know, so it's almost being that seed, isn't it? You know, that's in the ground. And I think the more we become that seed that's not really growing, but it's just becoming empty and just allowing, the more that development and that progression is responding, and the more it starts to blossom and turn into something wonderful. So, you know, it's ever going, it's ever ongoing, is what I would say. That's how it's gone for me, and I'm still learning and loving it. So yeah,
It's a wonderful journey, that's for sure. Milada. Thank you, Joe.
that's okay.
Yeah, you know, we all have our own experiences, but the experience I have is having something develop and not necessarily having the ability to express what was occurring with others to others, like as a teacher. And so there's some components here of teaching. You have a teacher that holds space for you. Sometimes just silence and holding space is our greatest teacher, and spirit does that for us all the time, every day, obviously. You have a teacher that can help you to unwind what you have going on and explain to you, like Joe was talking about developing at an early age, and probably having teachers help you to understand what was going on with you. And then there are those vastly gifted communicators who can explain things in simple and technical terms and help you to start to gain knowledge, you know, and then holding on to that knowledge and then applying it to your own experience. So there's, I think, kind of like what Andy was saying, there's these different levels of depths within the teaching experience. I don't know if I can speak to any time frame, but I know for myself, one of my hesitations in teaching has been wanting to make sure that I can communicate what I experience or how things work to others, because my experience was kind of organic, and I didn't always know how to tell people what was happening. I was like, oh, it just happens, you know, it's just there, and it feels nice. I'm in the bliss, you know? And until you can say to another human being, okay, here's some steps that you can go through as yourself, that you can experiment with and try and see if it works for you. How did that work for you? And then you start to work together with them until you can get into the meat of things and communicate that and have a rich experience with your trance mediumship. Like some of you have done lots of teaching and demonstrations, and you've held workshops, and I know some of the people here have vast amount of experience, have been all over the world and done this. So now you have a richness of working with so many people all over the world. You have the richness of learning from some of the old masters, you know. So I think it is a depth thing over time and experience. And for someone like me, who I still feel I'm very new to this, I'm still learning how to express how it works and how I feel within it. So yeah, it's definitely a journey with no end.
Thank you, Alana. Hitomi.
I mean, I think that you know, when things look bright and shiny in our culture, a lot of people like to get on to the bright and shiny bandwagon and be part of it. So I think that that's one of the reasons why I think I keep seeing a lot of people starting to want to teach, because they want to be part of something that feels really good, you know. And I think, though, you know, we're all students, aren't we? Like, even as teachers, we're students forever and always learning. And I think what I'm noticing, that, you know, everyone right now wants to feel good and feel better. And so they're just looking for anything that can kind of get them to that place. And they're not necessarily looking to maybe understanding. I think there's many different versions of trance now, I'm noticing, you know. So maybe that's what we're seeing a lot of too, is like, you know, and I think that as people progress, they'll realize, oh, I need to go back to school more and learn more, and maybe not teach, and
That's
you
true.
know, try
Yeah.
things out. I think that, you know, and then they'll become a student again, and then teach again, and, you know, we'll see kind of that ebb and flow, probably, with this being so popular now.
Yeah. Judy.
Wow, there's so much to say about this. I never thought I was going to be a medium, let alone a trance medium, and it's totally changed my life. And I feel it's really important to use your heart and the way you feel when you connect to someone who might possibly be teaching you, and to watch them in trance, if they're going to be your trance teacher, or watch or get a reading with them evidentially, to understand how their connection is before just jumping in. Because, as Hitomi said, the shiny, there's a lot of people that are attracted to the shiny, you know, maybe the famous teacher or the well-known teacher. But for me, I've been spirit led to my teachers, and I know it, and I've been directly drawn to Andy at my beginning. And I remember talking to Debbie, and my spirit guides going, like, petting me, like, yes, that's you're in the right place. And my spirit guides are around me for a lot of my decisions. And I say to them, yes, is this a good, is this the right person for me? I'm going to be 68 years old. I don't want to waste 10 years with the wrong people. And I have met and worked with people who were not good for me, but they also taught me what is good for me, and I'll never make that mistake again. So we are all developing, and we're learning every single day. And for me, I was a teacher for 25 years. I taught high school, and all of those experiences teaching high school students have helped me be able to teach what I'm teaching to very beginning people who just want to see what else is out there with the energy. And it's my connection with the people that's strong. It's my connection with understanding their insecurities and understanding their unstable footing, and understanding that life can get better even if they're in the darkness. There is a way for life to become beautiful again. That's what's important to me, those kind of connections. So I can go on and on about this very passionately.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Debbie?
Yeah, do you know something that I feel is really important? And this is really such a good point that you bring up, Julie. So I want to show you this in another way. I want you to think about it in another way, okay? We are all on a healing journey, are we not? Every single one of us that's sitting here today is on a healing journey. And we're led into certain places, circumstances of how we grow, how we develop, how we heal within. A lot of people that come forward remember also, you know, whether it's been with Julie, been with myself, been with Andy, anybody that's here that teaches, we will have people that will cross our path, okay? When we think about it on the healing element, okay? So that person is coming and they're getting something, okay? The healing within them has started, okay? We as a healer hold the space. We don't heal the person. We hold the space to open that for them, to ignite that spark within them. But that spark can be like a fix to them. Think about it that way. It can be like a fix to them, okay? So they are getting, and a lot of you talked about, you know, the energy of that feel-good factor, of that's how they get, okay? But what happens is, sometimes you can feel, all right, I've got what I needed, I'm moving on. So in that case, maybe the teaching, yeah, because it's this high they're on, okay? But what happens is that high will eventually crash. That high will crash. And why is that? Because they're not working on themselves. They're working on what this feeling feels like. And what it does, and it's a thing that comes back to us all, is personal responsibility. We are all responsible for ourselves. We're all responsible for our own development. The likes of the teachers that you may cross within your path are only there walking that part of the journey with you. But there will be times where you feel, okay, I don't need this anymore. But you have to think about it. And this is what we talk about, the ego, okay? Ego's good and bad. Think about it. It's a balance in your life between the good and bad, what we call good and bad. There's no good and bad. But if you think of how the ego can work for you, but also how it can actually destroy you as well. So it's all about balance. But some people will come on the path and they'll find the fix within it. Something that's making them feel good. But then they walk away and thinking, yeah, I can do this myself now. But there's where your personal responsibility comes in. And I've seen it so many times where it's the how many times have you seen mediums that continue work, and then they're just burnt out?
Yeah.
So it all comes back to the personal responsibility. That's what I feel. It's really important. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So let's see who's got some questions in the audience. Okay, Heike, question. She has a question. I've heard so many different answers about this question. What is the difference between trance speaking and channeling? I have to laugh because that's one of Joe's pet peeves. I guess I expected somebody just to start talking. Who do I call on, Joe?
Sorry, well, I didn't quite hear the question. Was it trance and channeling? Is that
Yes,
right?
the
What's the
difference.
difference between? Okay. I think, you know, everyone is going to have different perspectives on this, aren't they, when it comes to trance and channeling. And, you know, my team always say to me, you're going to get asked this question quite a lot. So it's really interesting. And it comes up, doesn't it, so much. But I think, you know, I can only go through what I feel and I can only give my perspective on it. But, you know, when it comes to channeling, to me, I would say that it's more really coming from that higher awareness, you know, that higher mind, that soul, perhaps, you know, that intuitive nature of ourselves. But, you know, the difference between the two is recognizing that when we're working with the trance, we're really recognizing that we're working with a separate intelligence that is coming in that should really explore that reality of evidential. There should be that evidential and that intelligence within it, you know. But also, you know, at the same time, I'm very open to people's experiences, because with channeling, some people might have experiences of ascended masters and various different things, and there might be evidence with that there. So I think, you know, for each individual, we're all going to have our own personal experience that's going to take us to a level that we understand. And I think if we can come to a sort of balance between the two in a way, you know, rather than the differences, it's recognizing how we can just almost be at peace with it, you know, because I think the more we try and separate things through this, the more difficult it can sometimes become. So, you know, with channeling it, it's more sort of things flowing through, obviously, and I would say lighter states, but I almost feel that comes from the soul, the higher self, whereas with trance, within spiritualism, as we know, it's very much proving the continuous existence of the human soul, and recognizing whether that's through evidential communication of someone's father coming through in the trance states, or whether that's the guide that's coming in to deliver the philosophy, or to deliver whatever it is that needs to work on behalf of the spirit world. But again, that's my opinion. As Mavis Patillo would say, that is my opinion. So, you know,
I know that I have spirit channeling through me, but not in the way that I'm learning lately that a lot of people in UK sees channeling different than we do here. So I could be sitting on my bed and my guides will start giving me information about something that I'm working on and something to Google, and I'll Google it and there's my validation there, and I'll be at all. So it's different. And then you'll have some that aren't. Andy?
I was going to say, but even you saying that you're sitting on the bed and you feel your guides are entrancing you. I don't think that that is the same as channeling. I think channeling for me is I would say channeling, I very much agree with what Joe said, because it feels like it's almost like you're saying to your higher self, what would this version of me say? And it's like we allow that kind of intuitive level of understanding to come through. But I think when you're working, like you just said, Julie, that is you being entranced, maybe not to a degree whereby you really feel that connection. But I would say that you're not doing channeling, you are entranced, and you're in that lighter state, but it's still a state of entrancement.
It's pretty pure, but you know why?
Yeah.
Because over time, with my trance, I've learned to block my brain out, the chatter in my brain all day long. I don't have it.
So I kind of think, you know, don't do yourself a disservice by saying that you're not in trance, because you are, in my opinion. Again, let's quote Mavis. In my opinion, you're in trance when you're doing that. All right. It's not just. All right.
I personally didn't think it was a disservice. I was really happy that my guides were like, oh, and
I am. But sometimes if we use the channeling term, then it's like, this isn't coming from the spirit world. This is just an aspect of me. And I just disagree. I think it is an aspect of the spirit world working with you. So anyway, I don't want to argue.
I'm not. I appreciate it.
So that's, I forgot, what was the question?
The difference between channeling and trance.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I was going to say, so it's like Joe was saying, so there's no point reinventing the wheel. That is my sort of sense of it. But those doubts that were massively playing on my mind right in the early days, and I kind of knew that there was this voice, this presence around me, and I'm kind of thinking, Andy, are you kind of losing the plot? So I then challenge them and say, look, if this is a spirit guide that wants to speak through me, you need to prove who you are. All right. So that's the first thing, kind of like how Judy said. So he shows me a color, then he shows me an animal. You put the two things together and it describes who he is. And I kind of thought, that can't be right. No, that isn't right. So he shows me it again and I kind of Google it. Oh, yeah, they're right. There is. Let's say he was called, I don't know, Silver Bear. So we then challenge him again and he knows that I don't believe it. So a spirit artist does this guide drawing and she says, I got a name. And I go, was it Silver Bear? Yes, it was. And then she shows me the picture and there's his name in the corner. So I believe that for a while. Then I think, nah, maybe she's been speaking to someone else who's been speaking to someone, and that's why she's drawn him. So then I'm kind of just in the bathroom doing whatever. And this other language, these two words in this other language are given to me. And I kind of thought, that's interesting. Google, translate it. What do you think it said? Silver bear, but he'd given me it in his own language. So the point is, I challenged him to say, you need to prove it to me. All right. So there is a discount entity. There is another person that was a person that is working through me, that is separate to me, that I can then build that relationship with. And I feel his energy and I know him and I start to trust him. And eventually we've discussed about unconditional love, that love that makes tears flow down your face. And that love that makes you want to hide away from the people that see you crying in circle, because that is the depth of the connection of love that he shared. So when he'd gone to such trouble for me to feel him, my only option was to place my trust in him and to think, I've asked you, you've shown me in at least 3 different ways, 3 different times, through different mediums, who you are. At some point, I have to stand up and say, I will be counted. And I have to do it. Once I'd done that, and I feel his energy and I recognize him, then that process just unfolds. But at no point now do I ever doubt him, because I know as soon as he starts to blend with me, he's there like that. And he's so familiar and so part of who I am now that I don't have any reason to doubt him. Thank God. But it took a while. So I don't, maybe that answers the question. Maybe it doesn't. But
Good answers.
that's my thoughts.
Yeah. Mine's like that with Lucy. I mean, like she shoved it in my face so many times.
Yeah.
And then finally one day I was like, and I teach this stuff to be aware.
Sure.
But it was almost she had to slap me.
But I kind of just didn't believe it. I thought, to be honest, that the people that said, oh, so-and-so is, with you, I kind of thought they were just being nice, just saying stuff to make me feel better, because I doubted it so much. But when he proves it himself, and more importantly, when you feel his love, as it is in that case, that gave me certainty that I will never, ever doubt again, because it's just beyond words.
Milada's going through that this past year too. She's finally not doubting. I'm speaking for you, Milada, but yeah. We've caught her guide beside her, transfigured so much. It's just
Let me say, Milada, that was beautiful. If you've got any doubt in yourself, then you need to let that go, because I've watched your work and I've seen how you transfigure that with spirit. And it's just like, come on. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Let's see. Does anybody in the audience want to give any more questions? What is the difference on how to blend with oneself, then meditation, or blending with your guides? What's the difference between meditating and blending with your guides, as I imagine the question? Hitomi?
For me, I would describe it as when I'm meditating, I'm quieting my mind just before I would be dropping down into the blend. So I think meditation is sort of can be the prerequisite for blending. I think with meditation, you can stay like in a place of like you're kind of clearing and you're allowing, yourself to feel calmness. But then what the difference with blend is sort of like the second you start to welcome in the other energies to come in and actually kind of, for me, it feels like they're putting a blanket over me and covering my face and everything. So so I would say it's just a pre version of it.
Milada, thank you.
So I would offer something that might be a little challenging is how are we really separate from them? In the sense that I know that we are having this human experience and we are working with a human mind that is the density of matter. but I also feel that we are one with them. And so for me, it's almost like it's the vibrational aspect of going from the narrow part of the funnel into the width or the breadth or the expansiveness of watching the play below. So it's not that we're separate from them, that at least this is my opinion, my experience. Not that we're separate. I don't feel that we're separate from our body, our mind, our soul, our higher self, and our guides. I don't feel we're separate from any of those or each other. I feel that we're one with each other as well. I just feel it's where are we experiencing the aspect from? Are we experiencing it from, as Hitomi talked about, from that higher mind as we're starting to let go of that mind that's keeping track of the grocery list and the finances and all that. I was saying we're starting to let go of that and we're starting to expand outward into that higher mind, or then we're going past that and we're experiencing the vibration from an aspect of the wise mind, the oneness, in connection with the energies that have experienced this world before. So that's kind of how I see it. But again, it's my opinion. I do really feel that we're all one, and I feel it's really, for me, it's a huge part of my spiritual practice and my mediumship is to know that we're all one. So
Thank you. So I have a question from someone that messaged me, a couple of them earlier. Hearing yourself speak while you're in trance. Does anybody want to talk about that one? Judy, she raised her hand first, and then Sharon, I'm going to go to you.
I'm going to answer this for how it is now, because it wasn't like the way it is now for me. Now, it's like when I finish doing a demonstration or a reading, it's almost like waking up in the middle of the night and you remember your dream and you remember it for a minute and then it just evaporates into nothing. And you really don't remember what you were dreaming. You just know you feel fantastic, right? So for me, I know I'm speaking, but I have no memory that lasts with the words. But in the beginning, when I was starting out, I could say 3 words and that was like a huge thing. But over time, of course, it grows and grows and you develop. But now where I am, I don't hear it so much. I feel like I'm almost moving over here and the words are coming. That's how it is for me.
Good way to put it. Sharon, do you hear yourself in trance?
I'll go to how my experience is now. So yeah, where I'm at now with it. So when I know I'm going to connect, I sit and shut my eyes and obviously set the intentions. Everything around me goes absolutely loud. I can even hear a clock on the wall ticking, which you'd think would disturb you because you're actually in. But I think now understanding is that the energy is enhancing, ready for me to drop into more of the passive energy. I then am aware of the connection and then however long John or Mary's with me, I don't have an awful lot of awareness when I'm in the deep state of trance. As they start to decide it's time to end it, I then become a little bit more aware of this energy, them and me, and then the step back. My recollection afterwards is I've stood to the side and I'm a very visual person, and they channel from my books a lot of visual stuff. So it's almost like I've had to have seen a little video screen. It's the only way I can describe it. And I might get clips of a 50-minute trance session, but it's like a request. So when the client or the recipient or the group, whoever's been there, feedback stuff, I might not remember what they've said, and then other bits I might think, oh yeah, it's like I've seen a picture of a house or something they've mentioned. I know it sounds weird. And then afterwards, I'm very similar. After time, and I was the same with my mediumship. If I did a reading, I wouldn't recall it the next day at all. And it's the same with the trance. And I have to watch the video, and it's like I'm seeing it for the first time.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm not very as eloquent as some of the others, but that's how I experience it.
You did beautiful. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a few questions that was messaged to me. Is it part of your mediumship development to have times of ups and downs with your connection to spirit? Debbie?
Yeah, I think absolutely. You know, we've got to remember we're working with the human side of ourselves, so we have the mind coming in. So, you know, we can be within a situation that we're dealing with, say, like in our private life, that sometimes can spill into, you know, our development stage, because we can be overanalyzing, overthinking, which then can dilute the experience that we're in at any one time. So yeah, definitely within, you know, it's part of the balance of day-to-day life, you know, and it's very much what Malada was saying, you know, walking the path. Through our day-to-day life, we're in and out of that trance state also, you know, in a healthy way. But as I said, there's many times where that will become, we can be very much within that trance awareness, within the deeper state of trance awareness, and other times we can be in a lighter state of awareness because the mind is coming in. So very much so, yeah.
Alyson?
Was this a question on ups and downs of
Yeah.
Yes, but I keep getting impressed upon me always is that keep things as pure and simple as they possibly can be. You know, we're living a human existence as much as we're trying to embrace our soul, our spirit, and open ourselves up to what we are, all part of the consciousness. But there's sometimes I feel that there are times where there is a sort of suppression that is put on sometimes just to settle and consolidate where you are. And that might often come at a time where there is a personal life experience or something that's just occupying you more, that's taking priority over the focusing of developing with spirit. But it's also consolidating and reassuring and building, setting the foundation of the next step for moving on. But also, you know, you do go through the moments where there are times of self-doubt or wondering, actually, what is the purpose? Why am I doing this? How am I really going to affect other people, or what's it all about? And then you question, well, is that your ego coming into it? Because basically we're all developing for ourselves. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's each of us within our growth. Hopefully, by living, we are going to impart something special to somebody, even if it's just one person along the journey of travel. So yes, ups and downs will come along in your spiritual development as much as it will in your own physical lifetime development. And the thing is just to sort it and then step on, I suppose. For
Thank
me,
you.
in my opinion.
Awesome. I also received a question that I know there is free will, but do your spirit guides also control when and what you receive to help you on your path? I give that to Joe first. Are your spirit guides controlling what you receive, and are they helping you on your path?
I think we can all have free will. And I think if there's something that's really important that our helpers or our team want us to know, and, you know, then that will be shown to us in whatever way that is, either by them giving that to us through somebody else, maybe another medium. But I do feel as well that perhaps there's certain things they can share and there's other things that they can't. You know, I think guides and helpers will always give us something to help us grow and to help us understand where we can almost become within our development, within our understanding, and within our growth. And so they're encouraging us, but I think they will share things when it is necessary, and then there'll be other times where they won't, because it's down to us to come to that realization, to recognize what we needed at that moment, what was going on in our life, whatever it may be. And then they'll say, yeah, that's exactly what you needed, but they couldn't share that at that time because you needed to learn that, because there was a soul lesson. And I think there's something about soul lessons that we need to explore, because they can't do everything for us. You know, they can't go and make us a cup of tea every day and do everything for us or tell us what we need to do. So, you know, I think sometimes there is that divine intervention if it is allowed from the spirit world, because I think we have to recognize the intelligence of them, almost the laws that they have there between their world and our world, you know. So I think there's different variations, but I think it's a really interesting question, actually. And I think there's going to be many different answers with that one. Yes.
Yeah, sorry if you heard sirens, they kept coming closer.
No, I didn't.
Oh, good. That's why I usually go in my closet. Hitomi.
I think that we all have free will within our own experience that we come in through for, you know, and so we don't have, like, we can't change our experience that we come in for, in terms of like, oh, I don't like this one, I'm gonna just change the channel and have a completely different one. And I think within that, I think our guides don't control us and we don't control them, but when we are, I think that they are always trying to be a team player with us. That's my experience. Like, they're always trying to help me, direct me in a way that that's going to help my growth and my evolution and my expansion. And I think that they really are always so supportive when I'm going through something hard. And their support might not necessarily be actual, like, this is exactly how you do it so it doesn't hurt or it's not as painful, but it's more of a support, like, we're here for you, you're going to get through this, we're going to the next level, you're going to be excited about it even though it doesn't feel so great right now, we promise, you know. And that's what I feel from them all the time. So I guess they don't control it, but they definitely are always there along the sides to kind of give me a buffer of, like, you're gonna make it, to the next one, you know.
It's all in being receptive to it and aware of it too, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it uncommon to fall asleep while in trance meditation? If so, is spirit working with you while asleep? Andy.
Is it uncommon or common?
I would say common, but she wrote uncommon.
Is it common to fall asleep when you're in trance meditation? I wouldn't say it's ideal. The point of being is what we're aiming for, really, at its most basic level, is you're aiming to achieve an altered state of consciousness, to be receptive to the influence of a guide or a loved one or whoever you're working with. If we allow our mind to wander and we don't focus, and again, we go to what Debbie said, often, if I really want to retain focus and I want to get into alter these states of awareness, then I'll go straight to my breath, because you've got to breathe, so why not use it? So what we can do, though, is if we then just kind of close our eyes and we just start to relax, we're like preparing ourselves for sleep. So there has to be, we're retaining a sense of focus within a relaxed state of being, which seems counterintuitive. So if I focus upon my breathing as I'm closing my eyes, as I'm asking for that blending to happen, then I'm being relaxed enough to be aware, but not being too aware to not allow that process to happen. So it's a kind of double-edged sword. So if we just close our eyes and say, I'll be relaxed and let's see what happens, then it's kind of leaving things to chance. Because as I'm retaining focus, I'm also then aware of, have I really got a connection, a sense that they're with me right now? If I don't, it's on me to say, guys, I ain't feeling this so close. I kind of feel like I'm losing my focus. Let's see if they can impart their energy, their presence on me with a little bit greater depth. So I say to them, I am losing focus. The spirit world aren't really doing anything as such. So I need to retain that focus and not just close my eyes, going into this relaxed state of being. Will the spirit world do something with this? I think probably they can to some degree. What they can do, well, that's kind of only something that they can answer. But I know, like, for example, when I sit in my seance cabinet, there's lots of times I've kind of sat in there, great intentions, been fine, suddenly just relaxed from work, and I've just kind of gone, what happened? 25, 30 minutes have passed. I probably sat in there for 30 seconds and basically had a nap in my seance cabinet. I think that's really actually what happened. I'd love to think that I went into this state of unconsciousness and they were doing wonderful things. But actually, Andy, you were tired when you got in there. All right. And I've kind of reaped what I sowed. So yes, and more likely no, nothing amazing has happened. They're probably sitting there going, he fell asleep. What's he doing? He's fell asleep. How am I going to work through Andy if he's sitting there like this? But joking aside, if we went into that really, really deep sense of entrancement, if we were working with physical mediumship, do the spirit world do anything with this? Absolutely, yes. So I think it depends on the reason that you're sitting, because if we lose that consciousness and they want to produce phenomena, then if you're out of it, in quote marks, then that is going to make their life easier. But it comes down to why you're sitting. What's the purpose? Probably raised more questions than answers there.
I actually laughed about it because I've fallen asleep in my closet recording myself and
Yeah.
I looked back
Done
and
it.
saw a lot of phenomena. And my intention was for trance, so they will mess around with you.
They'll do it because look, trance it's still a part of that road into different states of consciousness, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we're kind of flitting from one end to the other all day, every day. But it's when we deliberately aim to get ourselves into a zone, a certain place, then that's where those things will happen.
I'm going to ask two more questions. Thank you, Andy. That was great. All right, do you need to be in a deep trance to bring guides through? Can you keep your eyes open and still be in trance? It's two questions in one. Who wants to take it? No volunteers? Sharon?
I'm not sure. I sort of answer it with an experience I had.
Okay.
So I was in a trance circle. I wasn't leading it. It was a workshop experience, and the leader of the circle said, "We're going to try. We're going to go into trance, and we're going to set the intention that you stand up and move." Well, I was a bit shocked at this because this is a few years back in my experience. So yeah, we have the cabinet situation, single one by one. It was about 10 of us there, and we took it in turns. I didn't feel in the experience that I was properly in trance because I came back more when I had to physically stand up. And then I remember the experience of moving forward 2 steps and felt like somebody put a barrier around me so I couldn't move. And then I had to be helped back into the seat. Now, Sitter was a physical trance communicator. So she sat in a physical circle and had phenomena and stuff with her. She did it. Her guide came forward. She stood up. She walked around the circle and she got to me, and I was thinking, she can't be in trance. Oh my God, the experience. I looked into her eyes, and I knew this person really well, and I looked into her eyes, and it wasn't her. It's almost like I was seeing the energy of the guide looking back at me, and it always stuck with me. And she carried on, and she was like talking to each member of us in this trance, and you knew it was her guide because it was a male that came through, and her voice always changed and everything. But then she got towards the end of the circle, and something happened, and her energy came back. She started to come back, and she panicked, and we ended up with a bit of a situation where she had to be put back in a seat, and it took about half an hour, because if you suddenly jolted out when you're that deep, it's not a healthy experience, the grounding. So I have seen it from that point of view. It's but I wouldn't say I'd recommend it, but that's just.
No, yeah, I don't think a lot of people, it's very rare for me to see
that
people that.
I haven't even myself ever thought to try it in my own groups or anything. I just sort of, by guides, have sort of steered me away from anything like that.
I do know that when we have teachers that in the past, I don't know if it's now, to go deeper, it really can stunt your growth, your development, because you're constantly worrying about going deeper instead of developing through the
I have found
trance states.
Over the years, in the early stages, you can feel frozen, you can't move, and it's hard to speak. So
Remember,
physically move around and be quite interactive in the chair. I've never had the instinct to get up, and my eyes are closed. And that's that one I told you, her eyes are open and she was moving around. So, yeah.
thank you. Does anybody else want to answer that question?
May
Alyson?
I, Julie?
Okay, sorry.
Alyson? I'm sorry, Debbie, I'll come to you next.
Just very, very briefly from my own experience, I've never felt the urge to open my eyes or anything like that. But I was very privileged to have somebody in my life, a mentor for a number of years, who also, Joe, studied with, was in Gordon Higginson's circle. And she was just an amazing trance. I'd go around for a cup of tea and I'd be sitting there. We would be talking about things, and then we'd just be talking about something quite happily, eating my sandwich. And she would go quiet for a minute, and then she'd turn around, she'd look at me, and her eyes were completely different. She had beautiful pale blue eyes, and her eyes were completely different. And then spirit would come through, and we would have a conversation while I'm eating my sandwich and drinking my tea, and I'm talking with spirit as if I am talking to a completely different human being. I know that she's there sitting in the chair, and I know who that is, but who this is looking at me and talking to me in the voice of spirit, it was absolutely incredible. So I know there were occasions also where as spirit, she would say, or he would say, I'm going to stand up now and I'm going to walk around. And this would be with eyes closed. You get up, shuffle around, and then sit down again. So it was a very calm and beautiful experience. So I just throw that in there, not to be completely alarmed by what can happen. Obviously, there are so many different stages of development, and it takes potentially many years, I don't know. But I just wanted to share that it can be quite remarkable. I feel very privileged to have witnessed that, being a part of that.
Yeah. Debbie?
Yeah, I just want to share something with you. When I do healing, and when I'm doing healing in person, if I've got the hands on my client, so if I'm standing at their back and I have my hands, I completely let go. But I'd always, when I work with spirit, and I can feel the flow, when I'm doing healing, I feel the flow coming from my throat. But I always felt if I had my eyes closed and I was over the head, but I wasn't touching the head, I would feel as if I'm going, you know, I can feel the energy moving. So I asked the spirit to step in closed, but I keep my eyes open. So whenever I'm working round the head, I have my eyes open, but I'm still in that trance state, if you know what I mean. So that would be just an experience I've experienced myself. But they've worked with me like that for a long, long time, because I would have felt, you know, as if I'm unbalanced. I've got my eyes closed because I'm physically standing during this process, you know. So just a wee experience I've felt myself, you know.
I have a really good trance medium in my evening Saturday class, and she speaks with her eyes open. She does, and it's beautiful. So yeah, you told me you wanted to.
I was just going to share that I have experienced many times people in deep altered states with their eyes open, healing and giving ceremonies and entranced. I think it just takes a really long time to get to that place. So it's very pure, you know, and to get your environment out of it. But I have experienced quite a few experiences with it, and it was very, very much, they were in trance.
But Joe, I don't know, but I'm being guided to you. I don't know why, so I guess.
Sorry, did you say to me? Yes, I think it's an interesting one. You know, I think within trance, there's so many different stages, isn't there? And, you know, I like to bring him up again, but Gordon Higginson, you know, you'll be, oh, Gordon again. But Gordon Higginson, you know, he was able to go into trance and his guide would entrance him and he'd be able to go down the platform and walk, you know, down to the congregation. And so these particular aspects of trance mediumship, you know, back then, especially those that had these natural gifts, you see, they just could fall asleep and then it would just happen. And then they'd come back and they'd have no awareness that they've even gone into trance. The family is aware that the guides come through, the Native Americans come through, and they've said what they've needed to say. And then Granddad has just gone back to watching the TV. And it's just a natural thing within the family, you know, as a spiritualist family. And I think, you know, the eyes being open, I've not seen it. You know, I think if people are having that experience, then that's interesting. I think on my own understanding, having the eyes open would tell me that's more of a lighter state of awareness, such as the inspirational speaking stages. And even when we're doing evidential mediumship, we're going into that entrancement where we can actually allow them to come very close, almost that overshadowing. I remember once I was working and I couldn't remember a thing, but I felt I was becoming that person. But I wasn't in trance, you see. I was very much in a deeper altered state, but not too deep, you see. So it's very interesting. But where do we allow ourselves to recognize that this is this and this is that? I think it's very broad and very expansive. So I think we're all going to experience different realities of it and how trance unfolds. But I think it's recognizing the potential and the abilities of what's there within your trance. I think go with that. You know, it's not necessarily about I've got to go unconscious, I've got to become so deep. It's more about recognizing what's there for you to be exploring with your team and what they can do with you. You know, that's what I feel I want to say.
Thank you. Now, I do have to ask this question. I've been asked to ask it. I'm not sure who can answer it. Many are experiencing other dimensional beings coming through. Does this blending feel different? Does anybody want to answer it? Sharon?
Yeah, so it's an area that's been very strong in my books, the celestial beings and the channeling, and it's something I've raised in my own work and in my teachings with the trance. The blending, what we have to understand that we all go back to light. The human essence goes back to light. But out there, our guides are a mixture of physical, multi-transitional, transcendent beings. So that means they're existing in like the 5th up to the 9th dimensions. And then you've got your light conscious beings, which are in what we'd understand the collective of the 10th to 12th dimensions. And they're conscious beings. They're multi-transitional as well. So what we mean by that is they can show themselves as a human, as a guide, if that's the comfort you need, which can be either they've had an earth life and they reflect that life, and they will present themselves in a form that you're comfortable with. The physical transcendent beings that work with us, so you can talk about Pleiadians, Arcturians, Salatorians, there's different beings out there. They will either present themselves in a human form that suits the person, because when you're in the early stages of trance, if you're very aware of your guides and can visually see them all in your mind's eye, if they presented themselves with a 2-headed being with 6 legs or whatever, that's the extreme, I've never seen that, it will frighten them. So the transcendent side is that they can project themselves in the way that they need to be seen. Now, the blending side of that is every guide that works with us has their own unique energy. It has their own unique existence, their consciousness, and every guide's blending can be different if you're very attuned to it. But then some would say that you don't actually have to be aware of that. I find now with John, so John is from the Salutarian race of beings. He's a light being, they're a collective. They've worked with Earth for over 300,000 years. He first shown himself to me as a professor in the 50s because that was his incarnated life, and he wanted to experience life on Earth before he chose to be a guide. And then over time, over the last 2 or 3 years, as he then sort of became my main figure for the trance side, he one day when I was in trance told my trance partner, so I had a partner I worked with, so we took it in turns, that he is no longer to present himself to me in that way because I don't need it anymore, that he is this light being, and it would be a knowing. So it was just, that is exactly what happened. It just became a knowing to me that he's there. I don't feel heat, cold or anything. So they will adapt over time to your ascension, your growth in trance. And I feel you get what you need. And they, they're so beyond the 3D physical world and their possibilities of what they can do and bring to trance. And again, it's going to be a unique experience. But in my experience, and working, I suppose, the way they teach through me, they will present themselves in a way that's suitable. So say a lot of us who probably have got what we think is an Indian guide, like so ancient American guides. Now, these guides are presenting themselves to us as American Indian guides because back in the ancient times, they were very spiritual beings, and a couple of the races, one of them being Pleiadians, walked amongst them in the ancient times. This before white man that came to America, the Amazons, Australia, and they brought to Earth spirituality. And if you actually look into the history of these races, like the Amazons, this is a culture that don't have written, but they have through the shamanic leaders amongst themselves, the healers, memories of beings coming to bring them enlightenment, and it's been passed down generation to generation. And in many of the ancient Americas, you'll have the paintings on the walls of being visited by celestial beings. So it's all there in our history in a primitive way. So many of those who are light beings and all the highly physical ascended beings who are still out there have chosen to come back and show themselves as an incarnated life they had in those times to bring you the ancient spiritual way of healing, the ancient spiritual understanding again for ascension of humanity and this awakening we're going through.
Well, that's beautiful. Thank you.
That's all.
That's awesome. Very good answer. Guys, I'm going to wrap it up now. Joe and I have a class to teach it too separately, but we have to go, and it's been nice. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will upload this and put it on YouTube, share it with everybody. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Julie.
Thank you, Jelly. Thank you, Jelly. Thank you,
Nice
everyone.
to meet everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
To all the
Great feedback.
panel. Bye. Bye-bye.